All right, welcome to episode 48 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news, as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez, joined by my co-host Miles Porter, along with my work colleague Gabe Wilkins, who you can see on War Media's Open Run talking playoff hoops right now. We're back after a couple weeks. It's been a rough couple weeks. With the draft. Finally getting my bachelor's. Want to shout out that I got
Let's
graduating this week.
go.
Let's go.
Salute.
I'm gonna be just like Miles with the Roosevelt alum. You know what I'm saying? So gotta get shout out to Roosevelt. But yeah, it's been a rough couple weeks. I'm drained. You can probably see the bag. I mean, I usually got bags under my eyes, but right now they're accentuated for sure. But another thing that I will say is that the first month of baseball has been positive for one side of Chicago, and the other side has been negative, and that's what we're here to talk about. Because I know we were talking about before we came on here, Gabe. That's why I was especially excited to talk White Sox baseball because I want your take. From a guy from I hear all these. The thing is, you go online, you see all these meatball takes, and I know Gabe, you pay attention to those just as I do. Just looking at those, just meatball takes, and of people giving up already and all this stuff, and this and that that barely even know who Oscar Colas is. So it's like, it's just one of those things. But we'll get into it. But we'll open up because I want to get Miles his thoughts on the Cubs, and then we'll get your thoughts on the White Sox. I think we got more to talk on the White Sox, honestly. But with the Cubs, 15 and 14 to start off their season, they're third in the NL Central, currently in the series with the Nats, who were giving them a hard time, honestly.
Yeah.
But Miles, I want to get your thoughts overall. The first month of the season has been for the most part positive, right? And it's like way more than we would have expected. I think honestly, I did not expect them to show this much promise in April. And of course, can't always get too hyped because only 1 month. But what is your take on the first month of the Cubs?
Very promising, an extremely promising April. I think you could point to a few factors. Dansby, who got off to a great start.
Mm.
Cody Bellinger, who was off to a great start as well, having very early success with the Cubs. He's been a pleasure to watch. I've also been always in the Cody Bellinger corner, knowing that he still has so much to offer for a team. So, I'm hoping that he continues this throughout the year because I think he's going into this game hitting 300 or something like
Mm-hmm.
that currently. Um, so much good to take away from. Marcus Stroman was off to a really good start. Dansby Swanson, wow, what a great April. I think it's kind of come back down to earth a little bit since then. That's okay. That happens. I try to tell people, there's going to be a lot of hot starts in April. Eventually, some of these guys are going to become human again, but that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Make them any less of a good player. Overall, I'm very happy. I'm very happy with how the Cubs played in April. I think they exceeded a lot of people's expectations. That's exactly where I thought the Cubs were going to be. Not too great, not too bad. We're kind of teetering in the
Mm-hmm.
middle now, but
Yeah.
positive direction. The Nationals are giving us a hard time right now, but I do believe that this team is going to continue to be fun to watch. I've already been to about 5 Cubs games. Wrigley Field is jumping. I like the new lights. Wrigley's all bright and stuff. It's really, really cool to watch. So yeah, I love what I'm seeing from the Northsiders, and I'm cheering for the Southsiders as well.
Yeah, no, I mean they've gotten off to a hot start, and like compared to what a lot of people thought of they would be, but they're fifth in baseball with WHIP. Their starting pitching has been one of the main parts of one of their key cogs as to why they're where they're at right now. But their offense has also been amazing, man. I mean, they're third in OPS in the majors. And with Cody Bellinger, you mentioned him, man. I mean, he's got a 973 OPS after a month, and I'll still
Yeah,
probably take the under on that for sure. I think it's what Bellinger is the one that I'm kind of obviously I want him to be this good all season, but I still I'm gonna tamper my expectation for sure because I mean, can you imagine if they get a whole season of Bellinger like this? That would be crazy. So that's why I was like, I'll be calmed down and let me just get a couple more months see what happens. But Gabe, from the other side of town, what have you heard? What have you seen, or any? What are your thoughts in general on this on the upstart Cubs, I should say?
Well, I tell you what, man, if you get what you've been getting out of Cody Bellinger going forward throughout the rest of the year,
Hmm.
this is a team that's going to be in competition for a playoff spot in the National League. whether it's the wild card, if not the Central, depending on how much ground they can make up with the guys that sit at the top of the top, Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. So I that would be huge. I don't know how that might hold for the Cubs and whether or not they might be able to resign him, because the price of the bag would definitely go up, immensely. But he would be a guy that, if he remains this hot, he could carry your ball club for an extended period of time. But what I've been impressed with the most with the Cubs, like you said, the pitching. They 7th and overall in all of baseball and pitching. They got a 3.54 ERA. Is a team. They've gone over 200 plus innings as a team already. They've struck out 261 batters coming into the day as it is recording. I like what I'm seeing with the direction. And as I keep talking about with you guys, I think what David Ross has done a good job of building culture there. I don't know why Chris Morrell is still in the minors, but I think over, time, hopefully, for you guys' sake, they come to their senses and, they find a way to get that bat into the lineup.
Talking about that with my dad were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, a lot of people I know, a lot of Cubs fans I know been complaining about it. I understand.
Man.
Yeah, I think it's not my personal theory, but there's a theory that is out there that I've seen a couple times as to why they're still down there. And I'll leave that for the last Cubs subject real quick. But yeah, no, Gabe, you make some good points there. And I had a buddy who was like, I wish Cody Bellinger was dumb enough to resign with the Cubs right now.
Nah, he won't do that.
No, I know he won't. But I was like, yeah, it'd be nice if him and his agent were dumb enough to resign right now. But no, yeah, that's the bad thing too. Is like, when you really look at the grand scheme of things, and when you mentioned Morel, kind of this plays into it. But when you look at the grand scheme of things, ultimately, regardless of what happens, I think it'd be easier to re-sign him if he has a subpar year, has great defense, this and that, right? But if he goes on to have a season like this, for sure he's gone. And I will tell you this also, because I think there's no room for him. When you look at it, Pete Crow Armstrong's coming up. You got plenty of spots to fill up. The only other spot, not. Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, maybe he could play first. No, he can't play first base because Matt Mervis is going to come up soon too as well. So there's not a lot of spots for him anyway, unless you want to you can't really DH him either because he's too good at defense. So so there's not much room for him there. So unfortunately, gotta enjoy him for as much as we can this year. But another guy too that's been one of the main reasons they're here is Patrick Wisdom, man. 11 homers in the first month.
I forgot about Pat. Yeah, he been raking.
Exactly. If he had a week where I think he had like 7 of them, I think, where he was red hot. He cooled down a little bit, but he's still hitting bombs. But yeah, what'd you think about that, Miles, so far? I mean, he's been killing it so far.
I think there is something that Patrick Wisdom kind of knows, that he sort of has to perform well this year for multiple reasons. Kind of as you just mentioned, there are guys that are on the verge of coming up. I do believe that if Patrick Wisdom did not get off to a hot start, or the Cubs didn't start as well as they did, and were to cool off for whatever the reason is, he's one of the pieces, in my opinion, that you probably trade to get some value back. I think he recognizes that. I also think he loves playing for the Cubs. I think he loves Wrigley Field. So I think right now he's kind of playing for his role to be a Chicago Cub, and I think it's been incredible. Going forward, I am hoping that there is room for him on this roster as we are slowly transitioning into a new era of Cubs baseball. So I could not be more happy with him. I've always been a big Patrick Wisdom fan. I love his home run celebration, showing his chest for all the ladies. Good for him. So I think it's good. I think it's a very positive sign for the Cubs going forward, because I think this is guys you want to keep around. If the pieces kind of fall into place, especially like Gabe said, if we're able to compete for a wild card spot this year, I think that's a very good bat to have in the lineup, because he's shown a lot of good patience and control at the plate this year. So it makes me happy.
Yeah, and that to mention, I mean, this is a guy that on this offense that is having early success is hitting like 6th or 7th. So you have a guy down there who, obviously projected to hit like 1 million homers right now, but he's going to even out after a while. But right now he's got 11 and he's, now in the 6th or 7th spot. That's crazy. But Gabe, have you been able to check out some Patrick Wisdom bombs so far this year? What have your thoughts on that guy right now?
I mean, like I said, he's raking. You know,
Yeah.
you see it all across social media. You know, the series that he had against the Oakland A's,
Yeah.
albeit the lowly Oakland A's,
Mhm.
the team that's not really seeking to do anything when it comes to competing right now, really. Like he carried your offense. You
Yeah.
know, he's had those type of games and nights, man. And when you able to
Mhm.
get that type of production from a guy, you would take it. You know, especially coming from somebody on the South Side that would love to have some guys with some pop in their back, some more guys, at least showcase that. So I can't say nothing but good things about Patrick Williams, right? I mean, Wisdom right now. He's really carried the Cubs a great deal beside the likes of Dansby, Swanson, and Bellinger. And thus far, it's been a hell of a first month. Now, the thing when it comes to the Cubs is all about how can we continue to be consistent.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. And then I think, especially we're kind of seeing a little bit of a regression, kind of, with this road trip that that they're in the middle of right now. They started in Miami and got swept. It's the first time they got swept this season so far, and really it was all because of not being able to hit a runner with runners in scoring position, and they're doing it again against the Nationals. So Miles, want to get your take on that? Is kind of what have you been seeing on this road trip so far? That they just haven't been able to do. Because, is it is it a particular guy? I mean, Seiya Suzuki, I feel like ever since he's come back, he's been able to get that hit when they need it. Get it. He's got an RBI hit today as we record on this on a Wednesday. But yeah, just in general, what have you seen from this road trip in Miami and DC that hasn't worked out for the Cubs?
I really haven't seen a lot of bad baseball from the Cubs during this trip. I think that win that they had against the Nationals on Monday was a very solid win. I think the
Mm-hmm.
Nationals pitching to us very well.
Mm-hmm.
Has been very solid, kind of just neutralizing our bats. And it's not like we're seeing guys swing out of their shoes. It's part of the
Mm-hmm.
success. Part of the reason why this Cubs team has been so successful is because of their patience at the plate. Players like Nico Horner, who kind of just lets the game come to him at the plate. I haven't seen a lot of guys swing out their shoes or take back, whatever the case is. I think simply the Nationals have just been pitching very well to us and a little bit kind of outplaying us. That doesn't speak to who the Cubs are as a team. I think it's just one of those baseball things where right now the Nationals are just playing really well against the Cubs. Because whatever they're trying to build over there, the Cubs are kind of a stepping stone because we know that this is a competitive team coming against a team in the East that is pretty much overlooked. Now, I don't think the Nationals are going to compete by any means, but I think there's a lot of motivation there for sure. But at the end of the day, I just think it's just been really good baseball on the Nationals' part. I think the Cubs are going to be just fine, especially coming back home against the Marlins. And you have
Yeah.
another game. Oh, and this game today isn't even finished.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a guy that we have yet to mention is Nico Horner, right? And he's also one of the main reasons why they're there, right? It's like
Yeah.
whether other guys that we could also mention. I mean, Stroman, Justin Steele having an amazing first month of the season. So yeah, I mean, those are the type of guys that a lot of people actually predicted. Like a lot of people I heard predict even on MLB Network and all that. I've seen people predict that Justin Steele was going to be like this, not exactly what Lester was, but the John Lester type pitcher where he's going to go in there he's going to be gritty, like give up 2-3 runs, but strike out 8 or 9 and give you like 7 innings, and he's been great so far. So I think that's one of the things that I've appreciated as well from the starting rotation. The bad part for the Cubs so far has just been the bullpen. And we talked a little bit before we came on that both sides of the city have problems with the bullpen. And I think at least with with the White Sox, you're going to have Liam Hendricks back soon. And Gabe, you did mention you got to have some save. You're going to have save opportunities to use Liam for with and put him in the position to get a save. But yeah, I mean that's what the Cubs is like. At least you can correct that in a sense, right? When you have bullpen problems in your team that has potential, you can correct that come July or whatever. But
Yeah.
that's still a ways to go. But well, for the Cubs part, and another thing I wanted to mention too is Kyle Hendricks is getting closer to coming back, so that's good as well. We're gonna have like surplus starters at that point, and he's been hitting, I think they said 88, 89 miles per hour. I think just because he's been doing these new workouts with weighted balls. So yeah, it's cool to see. And then
Okay.
I know, right? I know. I was like, dang, Kyle Hendricks, he's lifted now. He's out here throwing 89, and so, but we'll see. We'll see if if he's been able to maintain it. Miguel Amaya is finally up, dude. After like 10 years, I feel like of talking about this guy. He's finally up, and we'll see what he can do. He is because Yan Gomes, he's gonna be on the 7-day concussion list. So Miguel's gonna be up here for a few days. But yeah, hopefully they're able to. And we'll talk a little bit about the schedule because I know Gabe was talking about it before we came on, but how just the schedules have been, nasty in general for many teams, but it particularly teams like the White Sox and the Cubs and all that. But yeah, when we're talking about schedules, I mean, looking ahead now, the Cubs will have Miami when they come back home. Then they take on St. Louis, and those are two series that, regardless of where these two teams are at, I mean, Miami obviously just swept the Cubs. St. Louis isn't looking so hot, but that series is always going to be competitive. I don't expect the Cardinals to stay down at all. It's really just been their starting pitching that has been their main issue. But then they go to Minnesota, then Houston, then Philly, New York. So it gets rough. I know I'll be at two of those Minnesota games. And the first time at Target Field, so I get to see that the new jumbotron. So that'd be cool. But before we get to the White Sox, there's one thing that I wanted to ask you guys because I saw I don't know if it was a tweet because like I said this isn't coming from my brain here, but I saw somebody mention that maybe the reason that they're keeping guys like Mervis, guys like Morel down there, and they're so hot because they're just raking right now, both of those guys. Is it maybe because those are two guys that would be part of a Shohei Ohtani deal? Is it maybe, but Gabe, what do you think?
Man, when it comes to the Shohei Ohtani trade market, anything can happen.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if
right.
that would be enough to entice the Angels. I know that.
Oh no, it'd be that plus
best,
more.
I know the Angels don't have the best farm system, and whatnot, but that depends on where the Angels are a few months from now. That's a team that has spent a lot of money. They went out this offseason, they got Hunter Renfroe. Like, they're not trying to play for third place. They're trying to, contend and maximize this chance that they have to win and compete with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. A matter that they failed to do over the last several seasons. But I don't know. I don't know. That could be a reason. It also could be that they maybe want to make sure that he's fully ready and not want to rush the prospect up, which a lot of times some organizations do, and making huge mistakes in the process when they do that.
Yeah, you're right, and that's and when it comes to a guy like Christopher Morel too, as well as people are saying that there isn't necessarily a spot for him right now, and I think like maybe when they decide to part ways with a Hosmer or like most likely Hosmer, then that's when a guy like him can come up and like maybe Wisdom can get more reps at first base, DH, etc. But yeah, no, you're right. It's look, and the thing is, I'm 100% rooting for the Angels. I see my Mike Trout shirt over here, rooting for the Angels to do something. But I think even if they make the playoffs, it's really hard to convince Ohtani to stay, let alone that for them to even make that run. But hopefully, I mean, as we're talking here, they sit a third at 16 and 14, so they're kind of in a similar position as like the Cubs. So you never know. But Miles, you chuckled a little bit when I mentioned the that possibility. But it's something that tickles the brain a little bit. But what are your thoughts on it, man?
I'm laughing because that'd be so lit.
Well, y'all got a dream, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of fans across Major League Baseball that are dreaming of the possibilities of a Shohei Ohtani trade. Hell, I wouldn't mind seeing it out south if it was a way it could happen. But as we know, a lot has to happen in order for that to happen.
You're right.
I think there's a lot, kind of like we both been saying, teams are going to have to give up a lot for this guy. And rightfully so. This is someone who not only are they an amazing, hitter, they're one of the best pitchers in baseball, period. And the performance that I saw him put on during the WBC was amazing. I've never seen a slider move like that from point A, skipping point B to point C in the strike zone. The pitch that he struck out Mike Trout on was incredible. One of the best pitches I've ever seen in my entire life. So I would love to see a guy like this in not even just the Cubs, but just I'd love to see him in a playoff atmosphere in October.
Mhm.
That would be incredible for him, for the game of baseball. And the same goes for Mike Trout. I think the Cubs, if they were to bring someone like that over to the North Side, you're increasing your chances a lot at that point. We don't know where this team is going to be, obviously, but that'd be an amazing move for all parties involved. It'd be great. I don't want to tell myself that I'm dreaming, but that'd be cool if all the pieces, if all the right pieces fell apart, because Shohei's pissed off. He's essentially tired of performing as well as he does next to Mike Trout for his team to not have the results. But if there's one thing I love about a lot of these guys in baseball is that they stick around and they still show up to the ballpark. While we see other people, I'm not mentioning any names or there's no one I'm going to reference. People take it how you leave it. In other sports, some people are not going to show up as much as they do with their talent for, playing for a team that's sub 500. So kudos to him. And I would love to see him, whether it's on the Angels, whether the White Sox, Red Sox, Yankees. We need to see him and Trout in October playing good competitive baseball, because it's good for the sport. It's good for baseball. It's good for everyone involved.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, I've always said that I think he's going to go to New York, whether it be with the Yankees or with the Mets. Regardless of where he goes, I think he's just made for New York. And
maybe not the Yankees. I don't want to.
Can't count out LA either.
Count
out LA.
No, you can't. And a lot of people have them as the number one of like where they think he's going to go. And I think that's a lot of reason why some people think that they didn't re-sign Trey Turner. Not that they lack money, but that they were saving for like a guy like Ohtani. But yeah, no, trust me, it's gonna be an extravaganza like no other in the offseason when people are talking about where he might sign and all that. Because yeah, and I think one more thing, and I think like with the Cubs is that a lot of people said also that with the signing of Suzuki that was going to be if it worked out with him, which so far he's looking like a great ball player. Like if you got a guy like him on the team, you kind of it's kind of a little bit more to bring Ohtani as well. It kind of it attracts Ohtani to the team a little more. So who knows? But yeah, like kind of like Gabe said, there's plenty of teams out there that have the opportunity to get a guy like him, and it's going to be exciting, probably the most exciting free agency of all time. So we'll see. Yep. But now moving to the South Side, there's a lot to digest. That's for sure. After a unfortunate first month for the White Sox. And, they sit at 9-21 as we're talking here on Wednesday, fourth in the AL Central. They recently had lost 10 in a row, and then they followed that up with back-to-back wins, including the one against the Twins. But, Gabe, like, what are your overall, overall thoughts on the first month that the White Sox have had? I know, I mentioned as well that a lot of fans are just giving up already, but I know you're not. But what's your take on the first month of the White Sox?
Man, where do I start? I've been to 5 games this season, and in those 5 games, I've seen a team that's come out to compete. I've seen a team that's come out and fought hard, but I've seen a team that's failed to get on the same page. And I think that, combined with injuries to key players that were getting off the hot starts, such as Tim Anderson, a guy who I call the igniter. I think you guys have seen the stats of when he's in the lineup versus when he isn't. When he's in the lineup, the White Sox are well over 500. When he's out of the lineup, they're well below 500. He's the tone setter. He's the leader of the locker room. He's the face of the franchise. You see a lot of rumors in the wake of the 10-game losing streak and in the middle of the 10-game losing streak about him being a guy that could potentially be moved in trades. You do that, you're foregoing whatever window of contention that you have, and you're getting rid of the longest tenured player on your ball club. With that said, I've said it before and I say it again when I talk on White Sox baseball. This team has to find a way to continue to get on the same page. Some days the offense shows up and it doesn't. Some days the starters show up and they don't. lately, starters have been showing up, going 5 or 6 strong. Some going 7, such as Lucas Giolito, who has done over his last 2 starts against the Rays, helping put them in position to win. But can the bullpen hold it down? Ronaldo Lopez, he's a guy that I still trust, but he's still trying to figure out and find his way in this league as a future closer, a role that I think he will have someday and do well in, but it's a process. Guys like Aaron Bummer, been up and down. Jury's still out on him, in my opinion. But getting guys like Liam Hendricks back, getting guys like Garrett Crochet back, that's going to help this bullpen. And finding ways to win tough games and overcoming adversity, which is something that I think is a good thing for this ball club to be in right now. I know a lot of White Sox fans may not want to hear that. I know that Jerry Reinsdorf isn't willing to spend money the way that the fans may want him to in the way that he could. And I have a problem with that myself. But when I go to games, I'm going to games to support these players. Players that were sold to me as future stars and talents. Luis Robert, what he did last week, not hustling down the line, not being honest and communicating with his manager that he was hurt and wasn't really feeling it, that can't happen. But I like the way that Pedro handled it, at least to where he didn't reveal all details and he handled it in-house with him. I think since he's returned to the lineup, which he has the last couple of nights, such as this evening as we record, he's taken that to heart. You know, he hit a 3-run home run to help the White Sox get started on a good foot this evening against the Minnesota Twins. And they're currently up in this game. And if they can close this game, that's 3 games in a row. And that's 2 wins against a team that's currently in first place. The reason why I'm not giving up is because even though this team is only 12 games below 500 right now as we speak, they're only 8 games back of first place. It speaks to how weak the AL Central is and how this team still has a golden opportunity in front of them, especially when, as I have the schedule up here, they're playing against the Reds for 3 this upcoming weekend. You got the Royals from Monday through Thursday next week, and then you have the Astros from Friday through next Sunday. And then you got the Guardians, Royals, Guardians again, Tigers. You're playing mostly opponents in the Central Division. If you're the White Sox, all you want to do right now is find a way to clinch your first series win this season, something that you did not do in the month of April. You do that and you continue to build some momentum, you can find a way to build ground up. Like you can't plan vacations in Cancun in baseball during the month of May, especially when you only 8 games out. I think a lot of White Sox fans are frustrated. I understand that. I get it. I'm frustrated too. Anytime you have a game where Lance Lynn gives you 6 innings for the most part of no-hit baseball against the best team in the American League, you will take that. But the bullpen blowing that game the way they did, giving up 10 runs in the 7th and 12 through the final 3 innings of play, that's unacceptable. But I like the way that they responded. And what it goes to show is that when you win a game in the fashion that they did on Sunday afternoon, coming back from 4 runs down, getting 5 hits in a row with 2 outs and counts where there were 2 strikes, that can ignite a ball club. And this team just got to find a way offensively to continue to work at bats consistently, have better plate discipline, and have starters go at least 6 innings or more, and let the guys that have been there and done that, such as Graveman, Bummer, Lopez, and Hendricks, and Crochet when they return, find a way to close it down. But I think all in all, it was a rough first month. But when you playing against teams that have been there and done that, such as Houston, such as Philadelphia, the 2 teams that represented the American League and National League respectively in last year's World Series, and you're playing against an up-and-coming Baltimore Orioles roster, who's only a few games out of first in the American League East, and then the Tampa Bay Rays, you got to come with your A game, and you got to have all hands on deck. And unfortunately, they didn't. And I think this is a team that feeds off of momentum. When things are going well, they play well. Now it's about finding a way to play at your best level when things aren't going well. And I think we're about to find out a lot about the resolve of this team. And I think that's a great thing for all White Sox fans who really care and are still watching these games to see what this ball club is all about.
Oh yeah, you brought up some good points. I mean that you probably said it best, man. I mean, with this team in general, as well as what I always hear with when people talk about inside the clubhouse and all that, is that, like, for example, Azagian was just on a podcast, and he was talking about it in just how it's kind of funny because a lot of people want Ozzy back and all that. People say like this and that, which, to be honest, I think is kind of bogus to Pedro Grifol. I think it's only 1 month. I don't think he's at fault for this. I mean, if anything, look, it just shows that and correct me if I'm wrong, or disagree if you think, but it kind of just shows that LaRusso wasn't the main problem last year.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I
And
think
as critical as I've been
Mhm.
on Tony LaRusso for some of his in-game management decisions and how he managed the bullpen, you could be just as critical of Pedro Grifol in that respect as well. But you have to have the horses.
Yeah.
And these guys have not been equipped with the right horses. And I think what Pedro's trying to do is teach new principles to these guys. Play discipline is a thing that this ball club has struggled with for the last several years. And to tell guys, hey, when you see that slider lowing away, like a Luis Robert, you need to be disciplined enough to lay off of that. These guys are young players and they still got to learn things. And it's unfortunate that they didn't learn it at the minor league level and that they have to learn it here. But someone has to teach them. Now, but I don't blame all of this on Pedro Grifol. This is his first year. It's some things that he's still learning on the job. And it happens. It was unfortunate that it lasted for 10 games, but the way that they broke it, it gave me some signs of encouragement that this team is still playing with a sense of togetherness. I don't sense that this team is disbanded. I don't sense that this team is giving up. I sense, if anything, that this is going to make these guys even more closer. I like the moves that they made as well on Tuesday, getting guys in here like a Billy Hamilton, who, albeit he may not be the best hitter, but he's a guy late in games who can make a big difference on the base paths. Yeah. And is a veteran who knows a lot of the guys on this team, having played a major role on this team 2 years ago when they won the Central Division for the first time in 13 seasons. So when I look at the Sox right now, man, it's just about coming together. This is a critical month. You know that the margin for error is small and that you've had a bad month, but it can't get no worse than what it got in April. Now let's come together and let's pile up some wins. And if you get about a few series in a row where you win in 2 out of 3 every series, before you know it, you could be right back in the thick of things.
Miles, what have you thought on the White Sox this first month, man?
I agree with everything Gabe just said, and I think no one could have said it any better than how he did. Yes, April was a disaster on the South side, but this White Sox team, to me, and I've always said this, man, I'm going to continue to say it. I just think they're so much better than what they've been showing at times, and I think that was the case this past April. That's not the White Sox, what we just saw. I think there's nothing that I can say that Gabe hasn't said. I think this team they're going to come together and kind of turn this thing around. This is a very winnable division. I really don't think anyone's running away with it. I don't think the Twins are running away. I don't think anyone is running away with this division. And I think how the White Sox play, I've always said they remind me of kind of like a JUCO, like a gritty JUCO team, just very diverse, loud, not afraid of anyone, will fight anyone. That's the White Sox that I know. A team that's going to go out there and get in the face of anyone. Tim Anderson, Josh Donaldson last year. It's things like that. The fire that this team plays with, and the fire that the manager has as well. Pedro Grifol has been defending his players a lot within that first month, defending them against the umpires, whatever the case may be. He clearly has his team back. He clearly cares about the White Sox and everything. So I think the White Sox are going to turn this thing around. I think some of the first early signs that we're seeing of this team really turning around, the series against Minnesota.
Yes, we are.
Vision right now. I think this White Sox team is kind of showing, hey, this is who we are. What you all saw was very unfortunate, very frustrating for all of us. I think there's a lot of accountability being taken. Now it's like, okay, cool. It happened, whatever. That's what I love about baseball is that it's such a long season. This isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. I don't care if great for the Rays if they're off to a great start. Where are you going to be in September? We're not out of May yet. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. And there's one thing that I know about this White Sox team. They're gonna play their asses off all the way to the last game of the season, and I just don't think they're out of it. I understand the frustration of all Sox fans. Very, very understandable. Your feelings are valid. You should feel the way you feel. I'm a Cubs fan. I get it. I understand. This Sox team isn't out of it. They're not out of it. They're just getting started. That's all it is. It took them a little bit to kind of get things going, kind of figuring out certain things, whether offensively, certain guys performing in the rotation, the bullpen, other guys not. Now they're starting to show their identity. Now they're going to perform well. They're just off to a late start. That's all it is. The White Sox are going to pull themselves back into this. I know that for sure. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen July 31st.
And to add to your point on that, Miles, too, it was some blessings that came through the struggle in April.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a guy like your own Moncada go down, and you're able to insert a guy like Jake Berger in, who has made a world of difference when it comes to providing this White Sox lineup with power, even though he exited today's game with what I believe was an oblique injury, hasn't came out yet as to why that was. Hopefully he doesn't have to miss an extended period of time. But Jake Berger kept his club in a lot of ball games and has been a catalyst and a huge spark plug for this offense. I've been to 5 games this season. Jake Berger's homered in 4 out of 5 I've been to. And he almost had 5 within those 4 games in which he homered, if not for a Randy Arozarena robbery on Friday night on the South Side. So when I look at this ball club, I understand the frustration because they've had a lot of leads in these games that they have lost. But at the same time, think about teams that have won the World Series within the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
The Nationals in 2019 in May, they were 19-31. 2021, the Braves, they were struggling. I used to watch a lot of MLB highlights on a nightly basis in 2021. And I would see the Braves drop a lot of close games. And I would always tell my friends, like, yeah, they dropping a lot of close games, but if they could get hot at the right time, they got a shot because of the talent. A lot of ground to make up. But when you're in a division like the Central, where there's no really true, strong, dominant team, you can't pack it up.
Right. Can't jump ship.
No, at all.
Yeah, and Gabe, you brought up a good point with those teams, and to add to your point, I mean, look at the Phillies. They made the World Series. They didn't win it, but they made it to the World Series after their, it fell apart with George Girardi, and they were like 7 games under 500 when Rob Thompson took over. So there you go. That's another, So that's the one thing too, is like, man, if you're a real baseball fan, it doesn't matter if you're not gonna give up a month into the season. Like 100%. There's so much left, especially in the circumstances that the White Sox are in, with the talent they got. So definitely, I saw that note about Jake Berger. He left. Hopefully, it's not nothing serious there, because he's been a great part. But the last thing I want to ask you about the White Sox, Gabe, is just the fact that that it went viral, that phone call. What do you think about that phone call to ESPN by that one White Sox fan?
Like I said, I understand the frustration.
Yeah.
I get it. He's been a Sox fan for over 40 years. Yeah. He's seen some worse years than I have. Mm-hmm. I came up in the 90s. I saw a team that was mostly competitive. I would say that the 2010s was the worst era of White Sox baseball that I ever witnessed, because that was the first decade of my life where I didn't see a team make it in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So I understand his frustrations, and he did it in a classy way. He said, I'm still a fan of the club and whatnot. But at the end of the day, ranting and raving, it ain't going to get you through it. Mm-hmm. It ain't going to get you through it. And I'm not a fan of a lot of things. I'll be honest. I'm not. I think fandom in some cases could be odd. But when it comes to the White Sox, a team that I grew up with, and was born and raised in that ballpark, it's hard for me to turn away from them. And like I said, based on the trends that I've seen recently, coming back into baseball and following it a lot deeper, I can't give up on them. I just can't. And as I'm seeing tonight, this is a team that's coming together. And we talked about Billy Hamilton. He made a difference getting an insurance run in the bottom of the eighth. So you using his legs. Just be patient. This is a big month coming up. We know that the margin for error is small. But if these guys can get hot, this could end up being one of the best things that's ever happened to them.
That is true. Every time a team goes down like this, and that they have a rough, first month or first for or a couple months in general, I'm always like, is it gonna be one of those stats they're gonna bring up in the playoffs? Where they were this record, in this month or whatever. So yeah, hopefully they're able to bring it back and get it done. But you're right. It's definitely not gonna ranting and being angry is not gonna get you through a rough patch for your team whatsoever. Is for being a fan, you just gotta take it day by day, literally, and that's what baseball is all about. Is you take it day by day, and your team loses, you move on. The next day, at least you got an opportunity to win again. So before we go, there's a couple of things we wanted to talk about. A couple more teams around the league, and we talked about the Rays a little bit because of course they've faced the White Sox 7 times already. But I mean the Rays just keep on winning, and they're 24-6 at the start of the day today. And they have a team OPS of 876. I mean that's like just ridiculous after the first month of the season. But overall, in Miles, we'll start with you. But what has been your overall thoughts on the Tampa Bay Rays right now, man? Because they got everything going, and that's not even with everyone they got. I mean, they lost Jeffrey Springs for the season in the rotation, but they've been able to get it done. I mean, everyone in that lineup's hitting, and I think a little bit I want to say is a little bit of that little that WBC Mexicans magic, with they brought it over, right? Isaac Paredes, and then also a Rosarena. They brought it from the World Baseball Classic to the regular season, dude. Yes, there you go. He's got the outfield doing it when they win or whatever. It's hilarious. So, but Miles, what have you thought about the race so far, man? And what have they been able to do? It's kind of like solidified them as the best team in baseball right now.
I think they are a team, an organization that no matter what pieces they have or don't have, they have always, and this goes back to this goes even before the guys on this roster, back to days with Evan Longoria. This is an organization that just knows how to win with what they have. They've never really been an organization that we looked at and we're going to expect them to make a big deal because they've never had that budget. But they take the guys. I read stories on guys in their pitching staff who were up and down the past 3-4 years and then on the verge of retiring and going off into the sunset into indie ball, wherever the case is, and getting a 1-year deal with the Rays. And here they are posting 1.5, 2.1 ERAs, and it's incredible. This is a team that is just very, very well coached, and it's so cool to see the success of Randy Rosarena and seeing his energy that he brings to this ball club, because he is a big part of this ball club and everything that he does. Yandy Diaz, another important piece of this ball club. Wander Franco, who's now that he's healthy, now really starting to break out, now really starting to see who he is as a hitter. Many other players that I'm not mentioning. I think it's cool seeing Isaac Paredes as well. This is just an organization that just knows how to win with what they have, and I think that winning culture it's very contagious. You see your teammates having success, and it kind of wears off on you a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, I like that. Great for Tampa Bay. It's a lot of success, a lot of good things going on over there. Makes me curious as to how successful they're going to be. What are they going to do now going forward with Tropicana Field? Been there. Stadium sucks. That's never going to change. I don't care how terrible. But they win there, and players like playing there, so that's okay. From a fan standpoint, you walk in, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm in a bubble, whatever. So I'm very optimistic about the Rays, but like I like to say, it is April, but it's a little bit different with this organization because I feel like they have always had the code as to how to win and how to be a winning team. So love to keep an eye on them going forward.
What about you, Gabe? I know, like you said, like I said before, you've seen them 7 times already. So, kind of what's been the secret sauce, man? Like, how are they doing getting this done?
That team don't quit.
Yeah.
That team don't quit. That teamwork counts. They put together quality at bats. And like Miles said, they'll get a guy off the scrap heap that no one believed in or lost hope in, and they'll find a way to resurrect him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you talked about Isaac Paredes. He had some big hits against the Sox in their 4-game series here in Chicago. You talk about Randy Arozarena. The Cardinals gave up on him. The Rangers gave up on him. Don't matter. Dude got the heart of a lion out there and plays the game with an enthusiasm and an excitement that I've rarely seen a lot of players do in the league. And he's a hell of a talent to watch. And he's one of those guys you wish he was on your club when he comes to your town. Harold Ramirez has been big for them. They getting contributions from any and everybody. Luke Raley, you know, everybody. And the pitching, you know, you talk about how Jeffrey Springs is went down, but you still got Shane McClanahan.
Yep.
Johnny Chirinos has contributed, done a great job. Drew Rasmussen, a guy that's had 2 Tommy John surgeries, still finding a way to get his job done enough to be an effective pitcher in this league. Man, like I said, they're never out of a game. And right now they feel as though they've been to baseball what Golden State was in basketball. Only difference is they've yet to win a World Series. Can they do that? That remains to be seen. But this organization from top to bottom has done a hell of a job. And if I was a owner in some Major League Baseball markets, I would be trying to see who I know that has an inside detail on who works for the Rays, because I would want them in my front office.
Yeah.
These guys, man, they know how to evaluate talent.
Yep.
And they know how to work with talent. And that, to me, is what separates some teams getting to levels faster than others. And you see that. Like the White Sox, they competed with them hard, but the Rays are just a team, man. You got to work with them into the final out. And I had to tip my cap to them, because the things that they did this past weekend here in Chicago, and even before that, like Houston was the first team to beat them at home this season. And it looked like they were going to go through the whole month of April without losing a game at the Trop, which would have been insane. But they needed to win every game, though. Because look at the division that they play in, the AL East, which, might I add, they've done a hell of a job kicking the AL Central's ass to start the year.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's the thing, too, when you were mentioning like the starting pitchers, that's even also with Tyler Glass now not being 100%. So that's, that's another thing, too, is that they're able, it's crazy the way that they're able to win year after year with stuff like that. And yeah, and it's gonna be a fun race in the AL East, like it is most years, anyways. But with the Rays, Orioles that come up, Blue Jays still competing, even the Red Sox are looking decent out there right now. So they're able to, get things going early, and they needed that start for sure in that division. But yeah, no, and also you mentioned the home runs thing. I mean, they had like 20, like I think a home run in like 23 of their first, or like their 23 straight ball games, like to start off the season or something like that. It was crazy. They had a bunch of records in general. But yeah, and then you mentioned also about their front office. I mean, that's why the Dodgers went out there and got Andrew Friedman. I mean, that's like those, they know, people know that, those guys know how to win down there. They can, and what they can do with bigger teams. And we're seeing that. Obviously the Dodgers got their World Series in 2020. So but I want to wrap up with one last thing I want to ask you guys is, with, and there's a lot of things going around. We didn't get to everything. The Yankees are in last place. I don't think they'll stay there. DeGrom's injured again. It's rough out there for Jacob DeGrom and the Texas Rangers. But I do want to ask you about the I believe they're still considered are they the best team in that, or is it the Braves in the NL? Yeah. They're tied. They're tied for atop the NL, but it's the Atlanta Braves and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Do you guys believe the Pittsburgh Pirates are for real, man? I mean, you look at some of their teams or the games that they're facing, the teams that they're facing this week are going to say a lot because they're facing the Rays, they're facing the Blue Jays, so it's a big test. But Miles, let's start with you. And if we see the Pirates a lot. I think we're not going to see them until like June this year. But
Yeah.
this is definitely not, and nobody expected this. But what are your thoughts so far on the Pirates, who are without O'Neal Cruz, and they're doing this? They got Brian Reynolds, who they extended, of course, well-deserved extension there. But what has been your thoughts about the first month for the Pittsburgh Pirates, man?
I think a lot of these guys are buying in, and I think Andrew McCutchen being there with his experience, what he means to Pittsburgh, his presence in a lineup, I think that has a lot to do with the success overall of this team and what he brings. And overall, the chemistry is great. I think good for Brian Reynolds as well. I know that he had some issues with how that they weren't giving him what he wanted, and then he wanted out, and they didn't let him go. I'm happy they've solved that. I think Connor Joe is a great addition as well to this team. Jiwon Bay, another great name for this team. Miguel Andujar, I think, is another player who some people have probably forgotten about. It's cool seeing him get an opportunity with this ball club. I'm also a big Ke'Bryan Hayes fan, and I'm also still a big Carlos Santana fan. So I just think that this Pirates team is playing some very inspired baseball at the moment. And I'm looking at it from this kind of angle. It's like, if you have a team like the Pirates playing as well as they have been, and the Brewers playing as well as they have been, two teams that people were not thinking about the Pirates at all going into the season. They just weren't looking at the team thinking, hey, maybe they'll be at the top of the division. No, people were fourth or fifth in that division. I think the talent of the Central, of the NL Central specifically, is starting to unfold a little bit as young players are coming up in this division, as players are coming of themselves more. The Pirates, in my opinion, are the example of the Central becoming a very, very scary division again. This is only a taste of what is it going to be potentially in like 2 to 3 years when you look at all these ball clubs. Maybe not the Reds. I think the Reds kind of don't know what they want to do, where they're going. It's clear that they don't have a goal as to where they want to take that franchise. But the Pirates are an example of a team that is young, and is going, and they're dangerous now. I'm not going to say they're going to keep this going for the rest of the year. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't think the Cardinals are going to stay down very long. But they're an example of what's to come in the Central, and the NL Central specifically will be respected more when you look at the performance of all these teams besides the Reds.
Yeah, no, and yeah, you mentioned. I mean, hey, I will say you're completely right about the Reds, where they don't know where they're going. But
No.
at least they still have guys like Hunter Green and Tyler Stevenson to at least
Absolutely.
bring fans to the park. But you're right
Yeah.
in the sense that they are probably the most compared to all the other teams in the Central, the most scarce, because even the Pirates, I mean, you look at the young talent that they have, they're stacked with young talent. They just haven't
Yes.
been able to put it all together, whether it be because of injuries, or just in general, like Brian Hayes, Mitch Keller, all those guys. They have young talent, so it's all about just putting stuff together. The Pirates, I don't think they're quite there yet, but for sure, this is a big sign that
Yeah.
they're just maybe a few pieces away from getting to where they want to be. But Gabe, you saw them firsthand already. The White Sox face the Pirates. What did you think about them so far?
Man, I like what I'm seeing out of Pittsburgh.
Mhm.
I really do. And I did see that series, which was their home opening series at PNC
Mhm.
Park this season against the White Sox. And Brian Reynolds continuing to come into his own as a player. We know he had an all-star appearance in 2021. He's opened up the year hitting over 300. You talk about Connor Joe being a hell of an addition, Miles. Andrew McCutchen himself, not only being that veteran leader in that clubhouse, you seeing him starting to tap into his power. I believe he leads the team in home runs
Yeah.
in the DH spot. And even though he's not playing every day, when he's out there, you feel his presence. And I think his presence in that clubhouse has fired up a lot of guys in that organization from the top all the way down to where they're trying to make this a hell of a year. And a part of me wants to say that they for real, because watching them against the LA Dodgers last week, taking 2 out of 3 in a series they very easily could have swept, they look like the better team.
Yeah.
From top to bottom, in their bullpen, has been solid. Like I got the numbers right in front of me right now. Like Pittsburgh's bullpen, they got a 3.59 ERA. You know, David Bednar is one of the top closers in all of baseball right now, if not the National League. Pittsburgh, they're tough. They're a tough team, man. And I know that they're pitching, even though they got some young guys. Like you take a guy like Oviedo, he pitched a shutout against the White Sox.
Yeah.
Albeit no Luis Robert was in the lineup that Sunday. They won a game 1-0. They're able to win some close games, and they're able to rally back from behind in certain games as well. And although you can question their schedule, I really like what I'm seeing from this group.
Yeah.
And it's scary because they got their first round overall pick from last year in Termarr Johnson, who hasn't even came up yet. And imagine when you add him with this mix of guys like Brian Hayes, who's a hell of a fielder. And I think his bat is slowly but surely starting to come along in the league. They're going to be around for a while in the Central. They're going to be around.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Brian Hayes was like one of the first guys to come up and kind of show the promise of the Pirates. And yeah, I mean, coming from a dude like, his dad, Charlie Hayes, who hit tanks back in the day. Yeah, I definitely see him adding some more pop. I think he's the type of guy they'd be like almost like an Alex Bregman type player where he's got way more pop than you expect from him. While also having a great glove. So yeah, no, you're right. And the Pirates, they have the makings, I think, and while it wouldn't be a good thing for the Cubs for them to be good, I have nothing against the Pirates. But they have the makings of like maybe like the Giants from 21, where like they kind of came out of nowhere and put up a 100. Not that they're gonna win 100 games, but they put up a 100-game season, 100-win game season. So yeah, who knows? They have definitely some really good pieces, and if they can keep going, it'll go a long way for their organization because they definitely need it. That's for sure. But that's a good place to wrap things up for this edition of the At Bat Baseball podcast. I want to thank again Gabe Wilkins for coming on. You can watch him on the Warm Media Open Run podcast where he's talking all things playoff basketball. It's getting to the deeper round semifinals. You got LeBron and versus Curry, which that game was insane. I was about to turn on to have the Celtics Sixers game in the background. I changed it right away because it's like a 40-point game that the Celtics are up right now. Yeah, Celtics are up by. So yeah, that's getting a little ugly. But hey, still, congrats also to Joel Embiid for that MVP win, which Gabe called earlier in the year.
We got to get a clip of that one, man. I typically don't get MVP predictions right, but I just had a feeling, and I'm just glad Joel made me look smart. I couldn't be happier for a guy like him, who's dealt with so many injuries throughout the course of his career, and finally finding a way to turn the process into a reality and become Philadelphia's first MVP on the NBA front since Allen Iverson did it 22 years ago. So that was quite cool.
Facts.
Yeah, that's awesome, and he's a beast. So yeah, well deserved there. And also Miles, the Milwaukee Jaguars coming up soon, right? You guys start? You guys started or not yet? I think I keep seeing their countdown of the story. I'm not sure.
Yeah, first game got rained on, and then we get it next week. So it's gonna be exciting. I'm ready. I'm ready for the season.
MVP Miles Porter, baby.
It was building off my success from last year, going into this season, and just continuing to try to be a leader for these guys. Hey, man, look, I realize I'm not one of the younger guys on the team no more. For the longest time, I was one of the younger dudes, but now, I'm and not old, but there's still I'm kind of in that middle, that young, older kind of. So, I just try to be a leader and go out there and perform and have fun, man. I'm just happy to be playing competitive ball still. So.
Yes, sir. You got to take those players under your wing now. If you're the elder statesman, got to get those players under your wing. You never know, right? I mean, it's that clubhouse chemistry, baby. All right. So I want to thank viewers for watching, of course, and like I said, keep up with all our content with Bears recap and open run as well. So for Saul Rodriguez, Gabe Wilkins, Miles Porter, everyone have a good one. Thanks for watching.